This is Bosch's update for 2025. Now the headline is they're going from 600 watts to 750 watts and from 85 Newton meters to 100 Newton meters. I'm at the Riva Bike Festival, where Bosch has just announced a solid update for their performance line motors, as well as an all-new race motor. Now if you're already running the latest Gen 5 motor, you'll soon be able to get access to the increased power modes directly in the Flow app, and there's no new hardware needed. There's an all-new eMTB Plus mode that sits between eMTB and Turbo, and it gives way more control and responsiveness when things get steep and loose. They've also introduced a new Kiox 400C display. It's a top-dupe display that's cleanly integrated. Anyone that's got the Gen 5, over the past few months, it came out in September, will be able to get this update for free really soon. So the big thing really on the motor is the power. It's now gone from 600 watts and 85 Newton meters to 100 Newton meters and 750 watts. So that's a 25% increase in peak power and an 18% increase in torque. And we'll be able to take the max power from the default of 600 watts and just use a slider to slide it up to 750 watts. So that's a pretty decent power increase, considering that this motor's been on the market since about September last year. So anyone that's got the motor will get that, and it is a free update. It's been quite interesting talking with Bosch about power as well, and there's a lot of like power race kind of things happening at the moment, and a lot of discussion about power and watts and Newton meters. And Bosch feel very, very strongly that this 750 watts should really be a cap, a kind of a line in the sand for power, so these can stay classified as bicycles essentially, so we can ride them on trails like this and not get them reclassified as motorbikes. They say, look, they could easily make this more than 750, but they feel really strongly that 750 is really kind of pushing it as much as we want to classify them as regular bikes or e-mountain bikes. There's a new mode called eMTB Plus as well, and it takes advantages of all the sensors that Bosch have put in the motor. And it's got like a traction control kind of thing built into it where it's going to limit the amount of slip that the rear wheel gives us, which maybe with a higher power mode is going to be really essential. Now looking at this beautiful Nicolai I have here, it's brand new, it's 180 travel front and rear, but it's got this really cool new screen that Bosch have just launched. It's neatly flushed with the top tube, colour screen, high brightness, it's 1000 nits, so it's easy to see in sunlight, super legible, and we've got the wireless controller on the handlebars, and we can just scroll through different modes and things just using this. And this essentially is the brains of the bike. This replaces the system controller, the kind of bulky thing just with the LEDs on it. And most of the e-bikes that have come out with Bosch's Gen 5 motor system have like a blanking plate on them and the facility to put this in. So this will be available as an aftermarket option. You'll just be able to buy it and install it on your bike. And it does just makes it feel way more high tech, having this integrated screen. It's got things like the battery percentage you've got on there. With the power more, I can see, you know, the power more's connected. I can see the riding mode that I'm in, and it just feels like way more up to date. It's nice having the display on there. So yeah, there's quite a few new things launched with Bosch. It's not just the motor and the power update. We've also got new ABS mode as well, and new kind of integration with TRP, with auto shift and coast shift. And I've used it briefly, but I think I actually still prefer manual shifting. And honestly, I still prefer just the regular brakes. In my brief test, I just felt, I don't know, maybe I just like the manual control. So this bike has the race motor. Now it's very similar in terms of the performance, but there's a couple of differences. First of all, it's 100 grams lighter. They're using some magnesium casing with special coating, some titanium parts inside, and some ceramic ball bearings. 100 grams, it's not a huge amount, it's 2.7 kilos instead of 2.8. And it's got a race mode over and above everything else that is on the regular motor. Now this race mode essentially has a power curve that's just a straight line up and you hardly need to put any pedal input to get the most amount of power from the motor. So we're getting the full 750 watts and 100 Newton meters of torque with very, very little rider input. And the second thing is it's got overrun at the slightest touch of the pedals for the full 2 meters. So I can give it a little tap and it'll go 2 meters and then stop. So I don't have to give it a big crankful to get the full amount of overrun, which is good in some situations, but it can feel a little bit sketchy if it's quite loose, because it's just unleashing all of the power as soon as you touch the pedals. But I really like the 2 meter overrun, so I'm going to do a little loose uphill section, and I'm just going to try and use the overrun and give it a little tap and not have to do a full crank rotation to show you like how this overrun works on uphill sections. So what you can do is, from a standstill, get an instant power output from the motor with barely any pressure on the pedals. So it's easy to start in steep sections, and I need very, very little torque through my legs to get the full 750 watts, and then a crank will give me that motor overrun. And sometimes it's a little bit too much and it just spins out the rear wheel. That wasn't intended, by the way. I actually tried to clear it. Funnily enough, in the lower power mode, the eMTB Plus mode, I could have made that no problem, but you can see just how aggressive the race mode can be if you don't keep it under control. Let me try that again. All right, let's give that a second try. It's effortless to start. You can see as I stop pedaling, the bike carries on for 2 meters, which is the longest you're allowed to go in terms of the rules. You can see it there, it's still trying to propel the bike forward. So it's like a little bit of a wild horse. It's definitely a good mode, but it's a tool that you need to use sparingly, not all the time. Maybe some long, steep sections that aren't too technical and loose, but it can get a bit overwhelming. Now, the next mode that Bosch have introduced is called eMTB Plus, and it is so dynamic in the way that it delivers the power. It starts off very similar to the traditional eMTB mode, which was very reactive based on your pedal input. So as you start pedaling, it gives a small amount of power, and as you kind of ramp up your rider power, it starts to get amplified, and it gives a little bit of overrun as well as you crank the pedal. But eMTB Plus is ramping up similar at the start when you start pedaling, but it ramps up much, much higher, almost to just under race mode as you start putting more power through the pedals. So it's much more controllable through your kind of pedaling input. And once you get used to it, you can put in fine levels of power and just get a little bit through the motor and through the rear wheel. And that limits the amount of slippage that we're getting. And it's using all of Bosch's sensor technology to detect things like gradient that you're on, to really limit slipping when you're going uphill. And then as you start pedaling harder, the bike kind of really picks up and it starts to deliver the full 750 watts and 100 Newton meters. Essentially, it's like eMTB mode on steroids. You get loads of power as you start pedaling harder and faster, but it's way more controlled than race mode. So as I came up here in race mode, the time that I failed it, the wheel just span out, it was out of control, and I had to like jump off the bike. But we'll give it a go in this new eMTB Plus mode. So I still get that instant start, which is very nice, but I'm just having to pedal a little bit harder than race mode, but way less than eMTB. I don't have to pedal as hard. It's just so refined. It feels like very, very controlled. Tons of power when you need it, but when you don't want that like super aggressive power delivery to the rear wheel on loose stuff like this, it doesn't output too much. So essentially it's really easy to, or much easier I should say, to clean more techie climbs than ever before. And honestly, it's like they've just improved every aspect of the eMTB mode with the eMTB Plus. However, there is a caveat. It has 18% more Newton meters or torque and 25% more power in watts. So you end up using around 25% more battery. So there are caveats to it. There's no have your cake and eat it with this. It's physics. You are going to use more of the battery in the eMTB Plus mode. So I just did a timed uphill stage. I was curious to find the difference between the new eMTB Plus mode, the regular eMTB mode that we've had for ages, and the race mode. We use timed chips, so this is proper like chrono timing. So the first go was in eMTB mode, and I got 3 minutes and 10. I did it again after a little rest in eMTB Plus mode, and I got it in 2 minutes 37. So that's a big difference in terms of the speed and the pace I was able to get up the hill. And in race mode, I got it in 2 minutes 30, so it was only 7 seconds quicker, albeit it was quicker, but I was really impressed with the difference in speed or pace you can get up a trail between eMTB and eMTB Plus mode. Now obviously, it's using a lot more power, it's using 25% more battery drain, so you are gonna drain the battery down a little bit, but I found that riding around today, you can now have this kind of in between, you know, this very, very powerful mode, but if you're light pedaling, it doesn't use as much energy. But if you pedal harder, you go way faster, and obviously that comes with a bit more energy usage. So that's the latest from Bosch here at Riva. It's a proper update for existing CX users, and one that actually adds useful features. If you want a deeper look at this Nicolai S18 I've been riding this week, I've got a full video live on that now. Go check it out for the full breakdown. And as always, any questions, drop them in the comments, and cheers for watching.